Are you an aficionado of the tiny keyboard? Are you in need of keycap for that tiny keyboard? Well, today we are going to seek and see what group buys are available so that a year and a half, maybe, it's good to expect delays, your tiny keyboard will be outfitted with keycap and all will be well. So stay tuned.
Alright, so, welcome fellow keyboard degenerates to another episode of Is It 40 Friendly? Now, you might be a little shocked not to see extreme close-ups of my out-of-focused hands and the keyboard I've been using most recently. Well, this is going to be a little bit of a different episode. I also want to apologize for not getting this episode out sooner. I've had some things with work and some other things. I just haven't had the time or the motivation to pump out this episode. Hopefully it'll go back to normal with a mid-April episode. Now, of course, let's go ahead and cover some things real fast. Again, apologize for the late episode. And this is going to be a weird episode. It's going to be a little bit more of a rant episode. Please watch the whole thing to get the whole context of it. When I was looking at the keycaps this week, because I always do a little bit of a scan and see what we have, I noticed one, we only had one keycap set to talk about. Two, this keycap set did something that initially kind of irked me, but I started thinking about it, and I kind of understand why somebody would do this. Now, we have this lovely space over here on the left side of the screen. Let's go ahead and throw up the list of the trick-ass bitches with too many keys. Yeah. They didn't even try for us, which is perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. I'd rather see no attempt at a 40 kit rather than a shitty attempt. And there have been some shitty attempts. And before I dive into this, I just want to first say that I never have any bad feelings or anger towards anybody that has put in the time and effort to design these keycap sets. I really do appreciate it. They do a lot of good work for the community. They give us a lot of options that we might not have had otherwise. Now, that is enough rambling. Let's get into the core of the discussion. That's going to be over SA Magica. And SA Magica started on the 16th of March, and it is running through the 16th of April. It is a sculpted SA profile keycap set. It's ABS double shots plastic, being produced by Maxkey. And Maxkey is usually a pretty good price. We have $40 for alphas, and we have $25 for modifiers. We take a look at the modifiers, and we obviously see what the issue is here. Instead of bothering to try to make a good 40s kit, they just went with blanks. Now, the thing is there, yes, you have the right keycap sizes, but you want to see the legends, because I feel, for me personally, a big reason why I spend too much on tiny pieces of plastic is because I like the aesthetics of the legends. I have no problem with typing with blanks on my MBK keycaps on my chalk keyboards or blanks, at least until the new set comes in. I've used blanks on MX switch keyboards when we were learning how to type in, third or fourth grade. They gave us an orange rubber thing to go over the Model M's we had in the school computer lab. I'm old, so we could get our muscle memory down better. I have no problem with blank keycaps. Yeah, and that's an aesthetic choice, and my aesthetic choice is I prefer printing on keycaps. I just like the way it looks. And before I dive into this rant, of course, I think I already mentioned this in the intro, I don't harbor any resentment towards anybody that designs these keycap sets. I really greatly appreciate what they do for the community. And I'm going to say some things that some people might take a little personally. And I just want to be very clear, I'm criticizing a design choice, and it's really more its effect it has on the community, at least when it comes to keycaps, of course, and not attacking anybody personally. On the internet, people get those confused a lot of times. I'm going to be saying my opinion on things, and it's going to be mostly an opinion video. Now, I just want to also point out that I did a rant video a little while ago where I was upset at people that say you can't use a 40% keyboard, they're unusable. I've tried it. I don't, it was too difficult for me. Hey, it's fine if you don't like 40%, but I have a problem with somebody saying you can't do something. And then I was pointed out as being a hypocrite for saying that I don't like brown switches. But I do. I hate brown switches. As a tactile and clicky switch user, clicky switches are more tactile than tactile switches. Surprise. That's why we use them. We don't do it just for the sound. But those are two very different things. One was me being upset that someone refused to see the utility in a design, and a plethora of designs. And one is a criticism of a product, a single individual, not a type of product, but a product in and of itself. The equivalent of that would be me saying that, I think that the old low-profile plank cases were very poorly made, which if you've ever seen one, I think they're cast aluminum. They don't look great, especially compared to the newer ones, at least the examples that I have, which are a couple of years old at this point. So I just want to get that out of the way, because people are going to misunderstand what I'm about to say. And, I'm not saying that I don't like you or that I think you're wrong. I'm not going to go on RMK and downvote all of your posts just because your keyboards are a certain way. Use whatever you want. But we're gonna get into this here. That's enough rambling. Let's dive into it. So I am primarily an ortho and ergo user. Yes, I have the cores. They're horizontal stagger, but I really don't use them very much. They're not bad keyboards, despite what some people say. Their main downfall is you can't use QMK with them, and they came out too late, I think. But as an ortho and ergo keyboard user, I oftentimes feel that we are hurt by the other side of the 40 community that uses horizontal staggered keyboards. Again, bear with me, listen to the whole thing. I have a point. I like to build up the point before I make the point, which is not good for a YouTube video, I understand, but I hope my audience is a little more intelligent than that. And it's fine if you disagree with me. It's perfectly fine if you disagree with me. I understand. I allow dissenting opinions from my obviously perfect one. Kidding on that, but you can disagree with me. That's fine. I'm just one asshole on the internet. I'm not even reflective of the 40 community. But as an ortho ergo user, someone who's not into keyboards can take a look at a Plank and a Kyria and obviously see those are very different keyboards. Kyria's a bad choice because of how many keys they have on the bottom row, but go with me on this. But they pretty much use the same keycaps. CRKBD would be a better, or a Gergo would be a better option there because they have a smaller thumb cluster. But you can obviously take a look at these and see that they're different, but they pretty much use the same keycaps. We almost have this standardization between ergo and ortho keyboards in this more smaller 40% realm. You get bigger, sometimes you get a little bit wider with the modifiers. With the horizontally staggered 40% keyboards, someone who isn't a keyboard person can take a look at it, and even people who are in the community can take a look at it and not instantly see that they're different layouts. Yet they oftentimes will require very different keycaps in terms of sizing. And that is a problem of a lack of standardization of horizontally staggered 40% keyboards. And those are becoming even more popular because those are the new keyboards that come out. I mean, how many different ways can you redo an ortho linear keyboard? I mean, it's a grid. It's a freaking grid. You can space them a little bit differently, but I mean, it's not complicated. The Plank, then the new AMJ 40, I think that's the one. I might annotate, I might not, what the correct one is. JD 40, something like that. But they're grids. They all use the same keycaps. They all work. Sometimes you get a little spicy with, hey, maybe we use a 1 unit spacebar. Maybe we use a 1.5 for like our Corn keyboard. Sometimes we might use a 2 unit for Planks, for Kyrias, things like that if we want a longer spacebar. But they're pretty much universal. You get the horizontal, you got minivan, you got JD40, you got UT47, you have the core, but let's face it, nobody really gives a shit about the core. Even though, again, like I said, I don't think it's that bad of a keyboard. But they're all very different. And I think the lack of standardization has really hindered our keycap option. So I think the 40% community really needs to kind of band together if you use a horizontally staggered 40% keyboard and come up with a more uniform design, kind of agree on it, because let's face it, we're not really worried about the space savings here. I mean, we're talking usually within a half or a quarter length of a keycap, with size, but we need to kind of get that locked down. Or you do, because I don't use horizontal 40s. Again, got no problem if you use them. Use what you like. They're perfectly usable, unless you talk to an ergo user. But that lack of standardization really makes it hard to make these keycap sets. And because of that, they can't add as many keycaps to them. You can't have like a bottom row backspace. That might help out like a Kyria user, because you got to have like 4 inner sizes. You got to have a 1 1/4, 1.5, and 1/75 unit. And I have some opinions on what that standardization should be, which is going to go completely counter to the community, which is fine. But also the bottom row. Jesus Christ, the bottom row. We need to do something about, stop introducing different size space bars. That needs to stop. Really, my opinion, I guess this is where I'm going to get really controversial. We need to get a little bit more reasonable with the space bars. We don't need 2 1/4. We don't need 220, 275. We don't need 3 unit space bars. What the space bar should be for a 40 should be 1 unit, 1.5, 2 unit. Those are perfectly big enough. 2 units gives you a 4 unit space bar. That's more than enough to figure out where you are. Given where our hands tend to sit on keyboards, and proper touch typing formation, which, let's face it, if you're a 40 user, you're usually going to have a more consistent typing style. You're not going to be like Cryosran 22, where he floats all over the place. And let's face it, he probably can never actually properly use a 40% keyboard. I have some opinions on his view on that, because he's a narrow-minded asshole. But do subscribe to his channel, because it's a good channel and I still like him. He's done more for the keyboard community than anybody else has by a wide margin. The fact he doesn't have 1 million subs is a fucking crime. But he's wrong on smaller form factor keyboards. He can't understand them. It's okay, I can't understand you linear key switch users. I'm kidding. Like I said about the brown switches and tactile switches, I understand why people use them. They're perfectly usable. I just don't like them. But I understand what people can like in them. But there needs to be a standardization with the horizontal staggered 40s. And it's going to be the van layout. It's going to be the van layout. I don't like the van layout. I think it'd be better if we went with a 175 or a 2-unit backspace, 175 inner, and then a 1 1/4 modifier. That way, you can have a split backspace, so you can have like an enter or a delete key on your top row as well as your backspace. And then if you want to go in a key, actually have a little bit of a smaller keyboard, you can lose your semicolon that I think should always be an apostrophe, and move that. 175 moves in. You can lose either the extra FN key or the shift key or whatever you have there. It might be 1 unit, and then you'll just have a 1 1/4 there, and that all kind of works out. But it's going to be the minivan. I've never understood what people love so much about the minivan. Oh, it's a minivan. Oh, it's a $400 basic keyboard that you can pretty much get the same thing for about $200 with a plank, quality-wise. I've never understood what was so big about that layout. And it's what the community tends to prefer, so it's what most keyboards seem to be designed around. Let's go with it. But people keep on releasing these differently laid out horizontal staggered 40% keyboards, and it's just another keyboard you have to cover, and that doesn't do good for anybody. And then there's the bottom row, and God, the bottom row. And there's this new trend with the 6 1/4 length spacebar. I really do hate that. But for me, as a 40 user, I think one of the advantages of using a 40% is we're rethinking how the keyboard works. We're going with smaller split space bars, so we get another option there for a thumb key. But it also makes the keys right next to the space bars easier to reach for FN keys. There's this need to kind of stay in the full size keyboard realm. That's why the horizontal staggered keyboards are sticking around. Like that, we're in my opinion territory, so you can disagree with this all you want. That's perfectly fine. But that's why that's sticking around, because people are like, oh, ortho, that's unusable. Like I had somebody ask, doesn't that make you pronate more when you type? And it doesn't, because we're putting our hands in the same position, in the same spot that you'd use a regular traditional stagger on. And that was a good question, by the way. It's a very good question, because that's a lot of misinformation that's out there. And, a traditional stagger, a horizontal staggered keyboard, in reality, for your hands to perfectly work on those, you have to have them both tilted to the right. That's why a lot of people will use their index finger for the C key on those, because you have to really kind of move your hand in a weird way, either your finger or your entire hand, just to hit the C key, versus an ortho where it's just right where it's supposed to be, or at least it's easier to hit, and then ergo even more so. And then you get into the manuform dactyls, and my problem was, growing up having used a traditional stagger, I don't type 100% properly with that, though I'm working to fix it. I think I got my middle finger disciplined properly for the C key. E key, not a problem, but the C key was just, it's offset enough where it's awkward on a horizontal stagger. But we have this need to stay in this horizontal stagger territory that I don't understand. I think we need to break out of that. I would love to hear if everyone went ortho and ergo, but that's never going to happen, and I recognize that. We're more likely to get people to sit down and hammer out fixing global warming than we are to get everybody to agree on or that there is global warming happening, than we are to get people to agree to move away from the horizontal staggering. But we keep on changing that up, and it needs to stop. And if you do something different, I think for the case designs, you need to leave room to have the keys kind of sticking out on the side or be a little short on the side. As a 40 user, while the horizontal staggered keyboards look fantastic, because they do look fantastic, the different lengths really serve no additional purpose, because they're still the same distance from the key to the left of them on the right hand side. The left, there's really no big issue with the left hand side modifiers. We got that down pat. But having a 2-unit, 1 unit, a 75 unit, that's right, 75 key length unit, backspace, enter, shift, what have you on the left hand side does not change the fact you're only going to reach over a little bit to get to it, just like you would for any other key. So I think the 40 Discord should sit down and have a vote and just kind of lock it down. It's going to inconvenience a lot of people, but I think going forward it'll be a lot better if like you say like, oh, you only have 175 backspace, 1.5 unit enter, and then 1 unit shift or 1.25 unit shift. That's just going to be a lot easier on everybody. And then we can start making people that use Curious with like a million thumb cluster keys happy because, oh, hey, all of a sudden this keycap set that would have cost, $50 now costs, $30. Now we can add in a bottom row backspace, enter, what have you, which depending on your profile, that can vary quite a bit because like SA row 3 and bottom row are the same. But for a GMK cherry profile, row 3 and row 4 are the same. And then you get like DSS and things like that. Or cam, MT3, not cam, cat profile. That's the one that's sculpted. I've been looking at cam keycaps because I wanted to try them out uniform. But we need standardization for the horizontal stagger keyboards. Ortho and Ergo, we're fine. Ergo needs some more keycap options for the bottom rows. Hell, oftentimes they'll lop off the outside row modifiers. I'm a guitar player, my pinky, and a classically trained violinist, so my pinkies are overly developed. Going out a row is just as easy as going in a row with my index fingers. But I understand why people do that. Again, differing opinion, I understand why people use that. And again, this is nothing against people that use horizontal stagger keyboards, prefer using horizontal stagger keyboards. Do you. I encourage you to keep that option open, and I like that we have the diversity, but at the same time, we need to kind of pin that down because it makes it hard for keycap designers to figure out, hey, what keycaps do we actually need? I think part of the reason why the 60% is as popular as it is not just because that's what everybody uses. There's a reason everybody uses because they're cheaper to make. There's a lot of uniformity in the 60%. You have pretty much just lifting up the numbers and alphanumeric keys and cutting out the rest. And then you also have HHKB layouts. And there are different, varying degrees of 60%, of course. But you have two primary 60%, designs. And the construction of most of the aftermarket parts are centered around the Vortex Poker. That's a mass-produced keyboard. People made parts for the mass-produced keyboard. Everybody could, standardize off of something. Everybody hates the core. Well, a lot of people hate the core, so nothing was standardized against it. Even the mass-produced Plank, the Plank EZ, has a very different case and construction to it than a Plank that you would get off of OLKB or drop.com. We need more standardization on 40%. We need to sit down. Someone needs to bite the bullet and be the bad guy. It's not going to be me because I'm a dirty, filthy Ortho Ergo user, so I'm good with our stuff. But someone needs to bite the bullet, bring the community together, say, hey, this is how we're going to do this. So this is where you're going to put your holes and things like that. Leave a little bit of room for some variation in it, of course. But I think if we standardize the layouts, the horizontal staggered 40% keyboards, this video series will become irrelevant, which is what I want. I want there to be just so many options out there that cover so many people that people pull up and go, huh, well, I'm covered. I'm like a 6% user now where, if they have a 40s kit, we know what the 40s kit needs to look like. And I think, and the reality is that standardized layout for the horizontal staggered 40 is going to be a minivan layout, which I don't know where they get the 175 shift because they use they use a 1 unit shift in that. That might have been like an older design, but I've kind of done a deep dive in the last couple of days trying to, taking a break from learning ZMK. To kind of look into that, like, where's this 175 lock shit come from? I understand if you want to use that instead of like a shift on that side, but all the minivans I've been able to pull up pictures of for like the last several years, even though they're now a defunct company, they all use 1 unit shifts on that side, and I don't see how you get a 175 in there. I think at one time they might have had like a 1.5 unit shift on the other side or something. I don't know. Someone who actually gives a shit about that probably knows a lot more about that than I do. But then we come to the bottom row. Bottom row modifiers. We need to do something about the space bars. Again, I think 1 unit, 1.5, 2 units. 2 of each of those. That's perfect. No more 225, no more 275. Most of us are hitting the same place on the space bar every single time. Some people drift a little bit. That's why, if you have like 2 units, you have 4 units of space bar there to work with. If you're hitting right in between them, oh my God, I feel so bad about that. I'm sorry. But where does 3 unit come from? Oh, well, there's that Prime E style or like the Atreus, Alice style keyboards, which I think need to go. They're well made. They look real good. I think that kind of philosophy might be an option overall for a travel board. But they're not more ergonomic. Yeah, they're canned a little bit, but they're a fixed angle, they're fixed distance, which is bad for ergo because everybody's different. And if you're going to go ergo, go all the way. And they're still using that traditional stagger, but now the traditional stagger is, wonky. Again, we're still heavily in my opinion territory. So if you disagree with this, that's perfectly fine. Not going to hurt my feelings. And most people will disagree with me. I want to be very clear about that. I understand most people are going to disagree with me on this because I'm a little more extreme with my layout. More so than my key map. But those aren't ergo keyboards. They're really a half measure, doesn't fix anything. And, accommodating their design, I'm fine with the extra B. Add all the Bs you need. But I mean, we don't need 3 units space bars in a 40 kit. We don't need 6 1/4 unit. Let's go whole hog and say, hey, we're using these smaller space bars. We're gonna get used to it. But at the same time, I also recognize that's gonna turn off a lot of new users because this is already a huge departure. Going ortho, going smaller spacebar, split spacebar is going to bother a lot of people. A lot of us earlier adopters, because again, I've been using 40% for a good 4 years now. Give or take a bit. I need to do the calculation of how long I've been doing it. This is a rant, so I'm not, all the pre-work's already done. New ideas aren't going to get researched in this. But those of us who went 40 and stuck with it, who really should probably be the ones dictating which direction we go with this, we were already open to doing different things. We're not doing it because it's cute. Some of us did it for a travel board, but we're mostly doing it because we're looking at a different way of using a keyboard, using this input device. And that's just going to naturally make you more open to different ideas. You're an open person anyway because you're trying something that most people couldn't figure out if they had their entire lifetimes to try to figure it out, which would make you wonder, why didn't you just hit one of the weird keys and start pushing things and see what would happen? But the idea of layers is just too much for some people, which is perfectly fine. You should use what you want to use. And I know that saying that we should standardize the 40% layout is also going to piss people off because people are going to want to try things. And if there's a standard layout, then you're going to be restricted in what you can try. And maybe we should try out a standardized 40 and a standardized 45% layout. Planks are 45%. Fuck you, Jack. I'm not kidding. It's a very much just a me joke where planks are actually 45% keyboards, but we call them 40% because they fit in the 40% spacing there. But that's kind of why I like the idea of the split backspace idea, because we have 2 unit. We can make a smaller 40% if we wanted to, but we can also have that 45% layout that we can kind of cover 2 different keycap or keyboard sizes in that. But going with just like the minivan, if you expand that out, you start adding keys in weird places. You start opening up a Pandora's box. Of course, people want to use arrows on a 40%, which again I think goes completely against the design philosophy of a 40%. Yes, my planks have arrows on the bottom row that I never use. If you kind of think about it, that's a terrible place to put arrows. If we're trying not to move our hand, I either have to move my hand or I have to move my fingers in a weird way. And again, I use IJKL for my arrows. HJKL is also good. WAS, ESDF. Again, not meaning to criticize anybody's design philosophy, but I think bottom row arrows, stupid. That's one. I mean, when I went to this with the 40%, I went, oh my god, this is better. It's one of the things that makes me stick with it. But again, going with a standardized keyboard layout would hinder people. But at this point, I think we kind of have it as good as we're going to have it. If we extend things out, it's not going to change the modifiers on the left-hand side. So if you want to go like those extended 50% keyboards, not vertically extended, but horizontally extended, you can do that with that layout. You're just adding 1 unit modifier or 1 unit alpha keys and punctuation keys, and the modifiers just scoot over a bit. What I like about my plank layout as well as the minivan layout is it allows you to get 4 fingers on the home row, not touch a modifier. We can still have the modifier on the outside. Now it gives you that option for the semicolon if you have not been aligned, or the apostrophe key, or if you did do something even weirder than that. More power to you. But it also, on the bottom of the alpha keys, gives you the option for that extra punctuation key, which I think is very important. So you can either put in like a shift FN key like I do. Well, actually what I do is I do a /FN, and I do a tap hold for shift on that key. really, that's the perfect way to do it because shift is a hold, forward slash is a punctuation. Makes it a little hard if you're weird and you want to do pinky, shift, and then question mark. But that's rambling enough. I need to make this episode because I really can't skip too many episodes. I saw this. I got a little pissed at first. Not really that pissed. I use piss for a lot less lower levels of anger than what most people probably would. But then I sat back and was like, okay, I understand. I know why they did this. That makes perfect sense for me. And this is going to be the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching all of this. I really do appreciate it. And I just want to say, a lot of people have been watching these recently. I really, really, really appreciate everybody who's watched any of my videos, but also these. I know I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to be, the dictator of what is right and wrong in keyboard keycaps. It's just my opinion on things. But I value everybody who watches these videos, even if you watch 10 seconds. Thank you so much. And if you like this video, which this is a very different video from my usual Is It 40 friendly videos, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, because I'll hopefully have enough time to do other stuff in the future. Again, work's been really busy recently, which is a good thing and a bad thing. I went to a non-client facing role recently. Good thing. But they're needing more overtime, which I get paid more, but that means less time for looking at keyboards and VR headsets and playing VR games. But like, comment, subscribe. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Again, I'm going to reiterate, it is fine if you disagree with me. I'm just one asshole on the internet. But I do hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I hope you are enjoying your keyboards.